Hello and welcome back to Addison To 35th podcast, your Chicago baseball authority, brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. My name is Herb Lawrence and really appreciate you joining us. And I know you guys are sick of me talking about how bad the White Sox are and what I expect them to do this year. So this whole week, we'll do an AL Central preview. We just had Nick Padone on from the Guardians talking about that great franchise and how they're doing, the reigning AL Central champions. Let's go to a team last year that most counted out. We started the year with those Detroit Tigers, and we ended the year with those Detroit Tigers. By the time we ended the year, we know that Detroit Tiger was a different outfit than they were when they started off. And joining me to talk about it is Chris Castellani. You can find him. He is the host of Kristen Company. And I'll say this, you can find all of that at castellanicontent.com or check out his Twitter at Castellani2014. Chris, it's always awesome to talk to you. It's been a minute since we did talk to you back in the lockdown days, right?
It's been a minute. A whole lot's changed in our lives, and a whole lot's changed in the world of the Detroit Tigers for sure. I mean, this is let's see. I think last time we talked was the lockdown days, but this is the first time in the 9 years that I've been doing these videos or kind of covering this team where we're actually talking about a team coming off of a playoff run. So it's kind of, in a lot of ways, it feels like year one, part two. It's kind of fresh and new to be talking about a team that has actual expectations.
I know most of us become fans of the team because of location, parental things like that. But I want to know, just personally, how did you become a fan specifically of these Detroit Tigers?
Well, I mean, I think that it was a weird kind of two-step in the time that I came up. I mean, look, I've grown up in Michigan my whole life. It's the only sports arena that I've known. There was never really any B team, but I think my first memory, bizarrely, was the 03 team, which for people who don't remember, early on in that season, I think they started 6-24 or something like that. Early on in that season, people were saying this might be the worst team of all time. And it wasn't until the last week of the season, I think they won their last 3 games or something, or won 8 out of their last 12 or something, and just avoided that record. But that was a story all year, and that was kind of a bottoming out for the organization. And so that kind of bizarrely kept people's interest for a bit. It shows how loyal Detroit fans are. And then it all kind of culminated 3 years later, where we all of a sudden found this team in the World Series. I mean, it was one of the great turnarounds in the history of baseball. And that's really kind of, I think, what brought a whole generation of Tiger fans back. I mean, we just had a 10-year run without making the postseason, but this team went 19 years from 87 to 06 without making it to October. I think 16 years without even a winning season. And then that 06 team just came along, was projected to win 70-something games. They ended up making it to the World Series. And then after that, I mean, I was fortunate enough during my formative years to kind of grow up during a really prosperous era of Tiger baseball, where not only did we have a bunch of really good teams, but we spent a lot of money, and the park was always full, and they were winning divisions and winning pennants. And so, I mean, I think that's kind of that's most important for people, is how you remember things from your childhood and your high school years. And so I always hold those teams near and dear. And then obviously we've kind of continued here through the rebuild and into the Scott Harris era.
It is very envious of Chicago people here when we look at what Mike Ilitch did for the White Sox, or for the Detroit Tigers, the late owner of the Red Wings and the Tigers. I think he passed away in 2017. And when his last couple years, it seemed like he was pushing all in. He's like, I want to win something. I want to do something. I don't know how Tigers fans, because we here in Chicago, we despise our owner and Jerry Ryan. So he owns the Bulls, owns the White Sox, because he's terrible. His last couple years, he could be pushing all in like Mike Ilitch, but he decides to do this and have the worst team in Major League Baseball as far as losses is concerned. How are his sons doing, continuing his legacy there at Detroit? I know last year was great, but how do Tigers fans feel about the people that Mike Ilitch bequeathed the team to?
Yeah, I would say that he's trending upward because of last year, but his approval rating is not very high as an owner right now, to be completely honest, just because it's some of it is a little bit unfair, because his father, man, that was fun. I mean, that was kind of like Steve Cohen-esque in the way that he's just give me a blank check. We'll sign whoever we need to sign. And obviously near the end, there were a lot of kind of disastrous deals, but for a decade, there was a lot of fun with the fact that they went out and they got their Prince Fielders of the world and they re-signed Cabrera and they re-signed Verlander. And you always felt like they were all in competing. I think that the way that his son is operating this, it's like a lot of owners in sports, in baseball especially, is that this is a business operation. It's not so much about making sure that they're winning 95 to 100 games a year. It's about making sure that you're staying in the black, that you're maximizing profits, that you're keeping people coming back to the ballpark. I think last year was a step in the right direction. And I do still give him credit for the fact that even though it took a long time, they completely cleaned house after the 2022 season. I mean, they finally hit the reset button, which is something that like they absolutely needed to do. And I think that one thing that gives a lot of Tiger fans hope is that it seems like, and this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but it's not, it seems like he's out of the way of all baseball operations. It seems like he's just saying to everyone, hey, I'm going to employ smart people and I'm going to have these smart people go out and make whatever moves that they need to go out and make. It doesn't seem like he's particularly hands-on in this process, but I mean, you guys have gone through it with Reinsdorf, and so many baseball fans have to go through it with their owners where there's going to continue to be skepticism until they dish out that contract. And I think right now, the big one is like, and we might talk about him here in a minute, Tarik Skubal. He's got 2 more years of team control, came up through the system, drafted by the Tigers, won a Cy Young. And I think that there's a lot of fans who aren't going to like the casual fans who aren't going to completely buy in until they see that $200 million deal be handed out. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I really don't. And I think until then, there's going to be some skepticism, but I think he does deserve credit for at least employing smart people for the first time in a while.
Like the atmosphere around Detroit and Michigan in general seems like it is in a positive mode with all the teams doing pretty well. The Pistons are going to the playoffs. Of course, what the Lions did, it fell short of expectations, but any Lions fan, I'm sure, would take what they're doing now than what they have been doing. The Tigers went to the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Do you feel like I do? Because Chicago right now is in a really bad spot where none of the teams are making the playoffs. Bulls are going to be in the playoff and they are play in and get killed, but every other team is just really bad. Do you feel like the atmosphere of the rest of the teams in the city or in the region can get like winning and or losing in that area?
I think so. I mean, Detroit fans are so intelligent and everything is so close to each other. I mean, we have like the stadium district here where teams literally like you cross the street to get to the other arena. I mean, you have 2 teams that play in the same arena. It's a unique thing because it was about not that long ago. I mean, even COVID or before COVID, where there was a period of time, I think it was around 2019, when the local media here kind of came to terms with the fact that every one of these professional teams was bad at the same time. And we kind of said to ourselves, well, that should mean they should all be like on an upward trajectory around the same time. And while I think the Red Wings have stalled out a bit, I mean, the Lions have never been good. I mean, this is they my entire lifetime and most of my dad's lifetime. And like the playoffs were a disappointment last year, but they won 15 games. I mean, it's the greatest Lions team regular season wise in the history of the organization. We've never had that. And the Pistons, no, they haven't won a playoff game since 2008. It looks like that might change this year. They lost 28 games in a row last year at one point. Like it's kind of an amazing turnaround. So no, I think that, and you've seen it in the off season. It's always a cool thing where you see like guys from the baseball team going to Red Wings games or guys from the Pistons going to Lions games. Like I do think that there is a connection that each one of these guys makes to the city, and the fact that there is this kind of upward trajectory right now. It really has been a lot of fun because they were in the dirt for a long time as a sports city. It's been a lot of fun seeing them get out of that.
The last thing I got for you before I get on the field, our guy Jason Benetti went up there last year for the Tigers. We in Chicago missed him for multiple reasons, but mostly because he's a professional baseball announcer that grew up as a Chicago White Sox fan, and those people could not wait to get him out of there. So how is Detroit loving or hating what Jason Benetti is doing up there for his first season for the Tigers baseball?
I just brought up Chris Ilitch's, the question marks about big free agent signings and giving out contracts. But it's not an exaggeration to say Jason Benetti's probably our best free agent signing in the last decade or so at this point. I mean, it was for people like, just to kind of recap. So the Tigers had a duo that was very popular here for a long time, and Mario Impemba and Rod Allen. They it actually ended at guaranteed rate, or what is now rate field, when they basically got into a fight, not on the air, but it was off the air, ended up leading to both of them getting fired. People still talk about it and joke about it. I found it sad because I liked them both a lot, but there was a lot of tension between them. And then they were replaced by a gentleman named Matt Shepard, and then a few other former Tigers were color commentary guys. And well, I never had the vitriol that other people had. They were consistently voted amongst the worst broadcasting crews in baseball. In fact, I think Awful Announcing did their annual ranking twice, and the Tigers were dead last both times. And so when it was announced that they were moving on from Shepard, the general belief was like, okay, there's very good broadcasters in Detroit. They'll go get one of the minor league radio guys. And none of us had ever entertained the idea of Benetti leaving Chicago. And then when we saw that news, we were surprised. And I remember I think one of the first things I said after it was announced, I made a video saying, like, he's going to end up being worshipped here if he stays here, which hopefully he does, because we take our broadcasters very seriously. He was always, even going back to when he was doing games with you guys, but even, I mean, when he was doing college basketball, like Dan Dockich on ESPN, I always thought that he was great. So no, he has an exceptionally high approval rating here. And I think that it's really cool that the team had success a year ago, because I think that will associate his voice with what will hopefully be a new kind of prosperous era of Detroit Tiger baseball. There's you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of guys that dislike Benetti at this point. He's one of the best.
And as I started off, I mentioned that the White Sox started the season with the Detroit Tigers there at guaranteed rate, and now it is called Rate Field. That team, fine. The second game of the year I was at, Kenta Maeda was trash. We crushed him. Still, White Sox still lost that game and lost that series. I think got swept in that series. But when I watched the Tigers, I was like, nothing great there. And then when they came back to guaranteed rate field in August, different team, just a different mentality. It felt like the team was just better. And I am a big, staunch believer in managers don't matter that much in wins and losses, but I've kind of cooled on that because of the Tony La Russa and Pedro Grifol years for the White Sox. What made it so that the first 9 games of August, they lose 6 of those, and then the last 19, they win 14? And I remember they stayed in Chicago for a week, lost 2 or 3 to the Cubs, and then killed the White Sox. Like, what happened? Why is AJ Hinch, and how did AJ Hinch get that team from middling to the hottest team in baseball at the end of the year?
It's a good question. Part of it is just baseball magic and the baseball gods being kind to us for the first time in a long time. That is part of it, just because this run didn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, what was true about this team from the beginning, even with their struggles, was we knew that there was talent here, and we knew that there was young talent here. The problem is, and you guys have experienced, I think I'm sure every baseball fan has, is getting all that young talent to come together around the same time is very difficult. Guys have different learning curves, different struggles. They come, some guys are late bloomers, some guys come in early and they start hitting, and then they hit a wall. You never really know. So it was a combination of things. It was, one, they finally offensively got healthy and were productive. You got Parker Meadows coming back from injury, and he was hitting. Kerry Carpenter, who was out for 2 or 3 months, who's arguably this team's best hitter, comes off the IL and starts mashing. You acquire a Trey Sweeney as your shortstop, and he puts together some good at-bats. Colt Keith, who was your opening day second baseman, terrible for the first few months, then gets hot. So the young talent really started to come alive, but where it all started was the fact that after they traded Jack Flaherty, they had a ton of pitching injuries. And for the better part of 2 months, this team had basically 2 starting pitchers. One was Tarik Skubal, which good one to have, right? He's the best pitcher in the world. And the other was Kader Montero, who was a rookie. After that, they were basically doing what they referred to as pitching chaos, or AKA bullpen days, for 60% of their games. And that was done out of necessity. But then every single guy that was coming out of the pen was firing darts. I mean, they were giving up 1-2 runs every single game. The bullpen over the last month of the season was historically good. And I do think that will carry over this season. I like the pitching staff here a lot, but that's kind of where it started. Was they were winning a lot of low-scoring games, and then over time, it was just one of those things where you check the schedule and like, man, they're only 5 games back. They're only 4 games back. It was, I think, the prime example of a team that is still relatively new into a new era of Tiger baseball. Last year was Scott Harris's second full year in Detroit, and just things starting to come together. Now, do I see them going whatever it was, 33-11 like they did at one point, down the stretch last year? No, but I do think that sometimes guys just come together at the right time, and I think that's what happened. And one kind of well-kept secret here over the last few years is like, we've pitched quite well, and we've gotten good innings from guys that nobody really expected. It's gone unnoticed by the rest of Major League Baseball because the offense hadn't been any good. But all of a sudden, we just got a little bit of run support, and people are starting to notice the fact that, like, man, these guys, every one of these guys is pitching really good baseball. And once the offense came around a little bit, it turned into kind of this miracle run.
Got a multifaceted question here because in Chicago, of course, the Cubs are the big dog here, and I gave them grief for not signing a big-time player this offseason, specifically Alex Bregman. Now, there's two things can be true at the same time. Cubs are cheap, and they offered him under market value. And then secondly, the $40 million that he got from Boston might be an overspend, but also it might look very good in that situation because of that ballpark and him specifically in that ballpark. How do Tigers fans take the fact, I think they finished second in the sweepstakes there. How do they take the fact that Alex Bregman signed for $40 million a year in Boston? As do they think, that's tough, we should have had him, or man, that's way too much for us and that wouldn't have worked for here? Yeah,
the general response from the fan base was very interesting because this saga went on for so long. I mean, this started, the Tigers were in on him like the third week of November, and this thing just went on and on, I think almost into February, might have even been into February. So people were just generally kind of glad it was over at that point. But once we assessed it, it was the offer the Tigers gave him was 6 years, $172.5 million. Generally speaking, the fans were, one, surprised, and two, pleased with the fact that Chris Ilitch was willing to offer a player that kind of money. We weren't sure if that would happen. And there was an opt-out, I think, after the first year, which I would have been fine with. But people were generally happy with the offer. And it's a mixed bag because, when I saw the $40 million a year, I said, okay, no, thank you. Because Scott Harris's big thing, it was the first thing he said when he arrived here in Detroit was, we want to develop and retain good young players. And while Bregman has had a phenomenal career, and I think he'll continue to be good with Boston, in a lot of ways, I would prefer that you spend that money down the road on a Skubal extension or a Riley Green extension, making sure that you're bringing back some of the good young guys that you currently have in your core. So when I looked at it that way, I said, I understand it. It's fine. At the same time, the concerns I have about this offense remain the same. And I'm sure that there will be many points this year in which they're leaving guys on base or leaving the bases loaded, in which I'll say to myself, got to be nice if we had a player of Alex Bregman's caliber. But I think that is really the big difference between what Chris Ilitch is doing versus what Mike Ilitch did, is the fact that near the end, as much as we love the guy, Mike Ilitch spent like crazy, and they threw out some ridiculous contracts, and it ultimately led to them kind of hitting the reset button and this thing taking a long time to get off the ground. I think there's much more of a business-like approach here with Chris Ilitch, which can be good in the sense that you're not going to end up with ridiculous bloated contracts, but also bad in the sense that when you have those years where you need to fill a void, they might not be able to do it. Because right now, I mean, Matt Vierling's injured. This team basically doesn't have a third baseman. Like, as of now, I believe, and I have an interview about this tomorrow, I'm going to ask, like, we're looking at opening day platoon between Zach McKinstry, Andy Ibanez, and Javi Baez at third base. I mean, it's just not, I know, right? So it's like, it's frustrating because I don't feel like they did enough to really upgrade the offense in 25. But looking at it long term, it did actually bring me some hope, thinking, okay, this guy turned them down, but somebody in the future will accept that offer, and it'll allow the Tigers to get better.
And ultimately, I think that here in Chicago, we've missed on a couple first round people. Nick Madrigal, currently on the team, Andrew Vaughn, and we see the record go as such because the White Sox don't develop other talent.
Yeah,
the Tigers, it's weird. Like, Spencer Torkelson has not become the guy that they wanted him to become. And overall, 1-1, Casey Mize has not become that guy either, even though I believe he's in this rotation. Like, which one of those guys do you think will take that jump to be more like the guy that they drafted this year?
It's a very good question. If I had to guess between those two, and for the record, both of those guys were drafted before Scott Harris was brought in here, and I think both are prime examples of everything that was, not them specifically, but their development is a prime example of everything that was wrong with this organization prior to 2022. And you've talked about Andrew Vaughn as a prime example of, like, these guys were a legit talent. You don't go 1-1 on accident. What's happened? And I think that it just goes to show the previous regime just was not in tune with how to develop players. But between those two, Mize had a very good spring. Here's the thing with Mize, and the reason why I give him the edge over Torque in terms of who might turn it around this year. Most, not all, and the issues have been there. Most of Mize's issues relate back to injuries. You know, he had Tommy John after or in the early part of the 22 season. Now, there's always been some underlying issues, like legitimately he doesn't miss a lot of bats. And that's been a problem really since he got called up. He got drafted because he had this splitter that was just this devastating wipeout pitch that became an ineffective, almost unusable pitch for him a year ago. Looked great in spring. And when you look at his numbers, he's pitchable. There's nothing, like, he hasn't been awful. He's been an adequate major league pitcher. He's just fallen well short of expectations. Torque, I'm sorry, has been legitimately terrible. He's 3 full years into his career. He's got a negative WAR. The guy was one of the worst hitters with runners on scoring position over the last few years. Now, again, had a good spring and, leads you to have some hope, but Mize is in this rotation, and Torque right now is kind of positionless. They moved Colt Keith to first base this year, in large part because they didn't have any faith that Torque would be able to stick at first base. And so they've done stuff like, this team's going to be a mess defensively for the record, but they've done stuff like put him in right field because they don't really have a spot for him at this point. So I think if I had to choose between those two, I would say Mize, simply because he looked good in spring. This is his second year now removed from Tommy John surgery. Often that's kind of when guys start to come into their own again. But if they can both turn it around, we're looking at a completely different team.
And the actual strength of this team, I think it's probably the best in the AL Central, is that starting rotation. I mean, you already talked about Tarik Skubal. You get back Jack Flaherty.
Yeah.
You have Olsen, who was solid last year.
Really good.
Casey Mize, and then Just Baseball's number 3 overall prospect, Jackson Jobe, is the number 5 starter.
Yep.
Like, talk about how good it does the field where you're just throwing out arms on top of arms on top of arms.
Yeah. Well, what has me feeling good, Herb, is that they're in a situation that they've never been in, which is, those 5 guys are quite good. I mean, that's a very good rotation. I agree with you. It's the best in the Central. But there's 4 or 5 guys that they have in the minor leagues who are going to start the year in AAA because there's going to be injuries. And this is a situation that the organization has never been in, where we've never had much depth, and you look at these teams, like these really good teams like the Dodgers, where they literally have 12 starters. Like, guys get injured and they can just call up, 6 other guys in the minor leagues and they can be, just as effective. There's guys like Cater Montero and Ty Madden and Sawyer Gibson Long, who I think are going to be pretty darn good major league pitchers, even major league starters, that are starting the year down in AAA. That excites me a lot. But yeah, I mean, it was a question with Jobe. He obviously got called up in literally the last week of the season a year ago. Would he make the team in spring training? Had a good spring. There were some frustrations with the lack of swing and miss, but it's one of those things, man. And you can just tell sometimes with guys. And I think you guys had it when Cease was coming up. We definitely had it with Skubal, where it's like the stuff is just so overwhelmingly, shockingly good that you can't ignore it, and you can't turn down the opportunity to have that guy start the year in the rotation. Also, it's kind of forgotten, this team signed Alex Cobb to a 1-year deal. He's going to be starting the year on the IL. That's another piece that you could potentially kind of plug in. So yeah, I mean, they've known for a while the strength of this team has been pitching. I mean, historically, they've kind of built around their pitching, but you have obviously an ace with Tarik, but with those 3 guys, and Jobe as well, if he really finds it, you have 4 guys who are capable of all pitching like number 1 starters. And I think that's a really enticing thing for this team. And while I have my concerns about the offense, this is a team that I think will be competitive deep into the season because they're just not going to give up a whole lot of runs. And that's exciting.
And when those guys leave the game, the part where I finding some troubles is that bullpen. Like, I know Will Vest, as far as when they play the White Sox, lockdown. Foley, excellent. Like, great. Like, I don't know What happened to the Dickie wearing dude? I forgot where he went. He's not on the team
Oh
anymore.
no, he injuries. Yeah, he missed. I think he had a rib injury at the end of last year. Alex Lang, for the people out there, that's his name. But injured right now. Yeah.
I mean, they just have a couple former White Sox greats and Tommy Kahnle and John Brebbia. But how is the bullpen going to size up this year?
You know what? I think it'll be fine. I think that, because you're right. That's the thing with this bullpen that's bizarre, is there's not really any one guy that you look at as kind of that hammer. Like the way that there's no, like, at their peak, Craig Kimbrel's or Edwin Diaz's or Aroldis Chapman's or Kenley Jansen's, these dynamite closers. But AJ, this has been a bullpen by committee, man, for the last few years. I mean, Foley last year led the team in saves, but you probably have 5 or 6 guys that are going to get multiple saves for this team this year. Will Vest is kind of my dark horse, because at the end of last year, he got a ride on his fastball that was just just ridiculous. Like, all of a sudden he started pitching, like, missing bats. You have guys like Bo Brisky, and you also have, I would say, the most underappreciated weapon in the entire sport in Tyler Holton, who last year had a run where he just didn't give up runs. And this is a guy who he started games, he's pitched middle relief, he's pitched long relief, he's closed games. I think that even though there might not be an individual that scares you, the way that AJ has managed this over the last few years has been so brilliant. And a lot of these guys are pretty young. I mean, Brisky's still coming into his own. Vest is still coming into his own. I think that it's a deeper pen that they've had in a while. There is some concern about lack of swing and miss. I mean, even a guy like Foley, who throws as hard as he does, I mean, he's just a ground ball machine. Like, he doesn't miss a ton of bats. So I think there's some concern there, but they've done such a good job of playing the matchups over the last several seasons that I have confidence the bullpen will be solid, even if they don't miss as much bats as some of the other top tier pens in the league.
Okay, so at the end of September, when we're looking back, what will the AL Central standings tell us, and will the Tigers be in the playoffs?
Man, it's so, I hate to give you a cop-out of an answer, but it's usually I have more of a concrete response by this time of spring training. But here's what is frustrating is I don't think anybody in this division did a whole lot to really help themselves this year. Cleveland, to me, got worse by trading Naylor. I think that's an insane move. And I know that they always, they have a deep system and everything, but I mean, that was your best run producer, really, him and J-Ram. The Royals had a fine season last year, but can you expect that rotation to repeat their success? I don't know. The Twins, I think, probably on paper have the best roster, but are coming off of a historical collapse. I mean, you kind of wonder what the juju's like there. There's a lot of frustration with ownership. My response is this Tigers team. This is the first Tigers team in a decade that I look at and say they can win this division. The problem is offensively, there are a whole lot of what ifs that prevent me from definitively kind of putting my feet in the ground and saying, this team's winning the Central. What if Torkelson finds it? What if there is another element to Riley Green's game? What if Kerry Carpenter stays healthy? What if Gleyber Torres, looks the way he did in spring training? Then we're talking about a legitimately good and potentially even deep offense. And with that pitching staff, they do win the division. My prediction is safe, but it's as deep as I can go. I think that they will be competitive all year. I don't think there will be nearly as many peaks and valleys as we've seen over the last few seasons. I guess I would still say the Twins probably have the best roster, but I have question marks there. So yeah, it's tough because there's a lot of question marks that if they're able to fill in those holes, this could be that 90-win team. But my only prediction is I think that I would be stunned if we're at the end of the season they're not still at least competing for something.
As a Chicagoan, I know of outside voices and outside influences saying that our city is poor and it's, you get shot here if you come to Chicago. So I understand the negativity that comes with a city that you live in, the city that you love. Mm-hmm. Detroit gets that same type of hatred.
Yeah.
But I've subsequently gone to Detroit, and you're talking about that village down there by Comerica, Ford Field, Little Caesars Arena. Much improved. I love Detroit in that area. The casino down a ways. It's a much improved area. What would you say to my audience, White Sox and Cub fans, if they want to come up for a series to Detroit? What would you say about that city and how it's improved, and don't believe that narratives that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where Detroit became such an easy punching bag for comedy fodder, essentially. And look, the city legitimately went bankrupt. I mean, some of this stuff was very legitimate. I think the downtown area of Detroit, every time I go down there, is better than it's been the previous time. I think that they've done a great job of the city has personality again. And really, I'm not going to claim to have been to a ton, but that stadium district that they have with Ford Field and Comerica and Little Caesars and the restaurants and bars that surround it and the nightlife that surrounds it, it's great. And it's a great place, for young adults. It's a great place for families at this point. Yeah, of course you always hear the jokes, but honestly, like, having been around the city, and this is where sports teams do matter, man. I'm telling you, having been around the city for the playoff runs by the Tigers, and having been around the city for the playoff runs that the Lions have had over the last few years, like, there is an energy that's really kind of returned to that area. So I really recommend people and I've seen a few instances of this over the last few years of people that have made road trips or flown to Detroit for a series and have been surprised by like how much energy is in the park and how much energy is in the city. So I encourage people to go down there, man. It's really a great time. It's a good time to be a Tiger fan.
One thing I'll say is that Little Caesars in Detroit, much better than it is here. It's weird because it's from there.
Probably. Yeah, well, that's where the headquarters are. Yeah.
Oh, so delicious there.
Yeah.
The thing I do here, and you see the title on the side. If you're watching on the podcast, I have a title that says, "Why do you hate the White Sox?" That's kind of the segment we do at the end of it. But I'm going to expand it since we are in the AL Central. I have a ranking of which teams in the AL Central, besides your own, do you hate the most or despise the most, and the one that you don't mind, or which ones are tolerable. Because mine is the Twins and the Royals. They're both like up at the top for me. Like, one is the Twins, number two is the Royals. As a White Sox fan, no matter what, the Royals are always going to beat the White Sox, and it's disappointing. Then I have the Guardians, and then I have the Tigers. I should hate them more. Robert Fick, I hate him specifically because of that fight back in the 2000 season. Yeah. But the Tigers in general, I do not hate. I actually kind of like them and the Guardians. What is your ranking for AL Central teams from most hated to kind of tolerable?
It's ever changing. I would say my 2025 edition right now, and I like their fan base a lot. And they've always been very good to me, but I have to put Guardians one because of the playoffs last year, like that, and really the fact that we have done ourselves no favors. They had a season one against us where they were 18-1 again, like that against Tigers. I think that was 19. Like they won, I think 24, 25 consecutive games against us. I mean, they have just dominated us for the better part of a decade at this point. So they're at the top. Second would probably be, okay, this is where it's second and third are very close. Second, I'm going to put the Royals second. And it's a combination of things. One, and I think you can relate to this, wonderful player. Sal Perez just murders us, terrifies me every time he comes to the plate. I never want to face him. And now Bobby Witt's that guy too, but I can kind of live with it because Bobby Witt does that to everybody. He's an 11 WAR player. It's that one I put second because it bothers me that they have a championship in my lifetime and the Tigers don't. Because we had such a good run for a long time. They had this very small window, won a championship, and they earned it, right? But that one frustrates me. 3 is the Twins. I would say that's last year helped that cause with them falling apart down the stretch and us making the playoffs. But I mean, historically, whether it's 06, 09, I mean, we've had some really tight divisional races against them in the past. I never like going to Target Field. I feel like we never play well there. And then last, for the time being, it is the White Sox. It is you guys. And this is where my baseball fan empathy kicks in, because there was a lot of people doing like a lot of grave stomping with the season you guys had a year ago. And having been someone who's done videos and blogs and content for some of the worst teams like ever, no fan base deserves that. And I in general, you brought it up earlier, I hate apathetic ownership, and I've been to Guaranteed Rate and I've been to that ballpark. I know that's a passionate fan base and they get shit on all the time. and their ownership doesn't do them any favors. Like, I do hope that they find their way out of this at this point. And ultimately, I mean, you could say this about a lot of teams, but they did us a lot of favors last year with the fact that, I mean, we opened the season by sweeping them. We clinched a playoff spot against them. So they would come in last right now, but I would say it's ever changing.
Totally understood. I mean, we don't, as I told the Nick Padone of the Guardians, he said pretty much the same thing. It's apathy with the White Sox, like out of sight, out of mind. And if we had to rank as White Sox fans and I put the White Sox in there, White Sox fans, for the most part, would say, I hate the White Sox the most.
Yeah, right. That's what I appreciate about them. Yeah, no, we can relate to that for sure.
Yeah, and that whole Salvador Perez thing, stop throwing him strikes. Like, dude, throw him a ball outside the zone, please.
He'll chase. He'll know. Swing. Yeah.
It's like my guy Chris Tannehill, who used to do the show with me, Locked On Sox, used to hold up a blank sheet of papers like, this is the White Sox scouting report on Salvador Perez. Like, please, just throw him a slider in the left-handed batter's box. He'll swing. But they determined to throw fastballs past him, and he's like, no, that ball is hitting to the left field fountains. Chris, this has been a joy. I really appreciate catching up with you and talking Tiger baseball. Tell the folks where they can find you on the Twitter sphere and all the stuff that you're doing out there in the baseball and other world too.
Yes. So at Castellani 2014 is my @ on Twitter. There you'll find the links to everything. But several months ago, I created a website called CastellaniContent.com. There is like the archive of everything that we do. That's me and my producer, Austin Sisler, who's done such a great job with the stuff that I've done really over the last year plus. Because I do videos after every Tiger game. So starting this year, like, if you want to get caught up on those, like from game one, you can find them there. Like I'm still doing Michigan basketball stuff. If you want to watch all 36, I think it is, videos from this season, you can find them all on one page. Same with the podcast that we do. Which is I'll Say This, which is our Detroit/Michigan recap sports show that's weekly, and Chris and Company, which is an interview show that we've been doing for over a year now. And we're recording it tomorrow, but Wednesday's show for the Tigers season preview, AJ Hinch is going to be joining the program, and we're going to be talking to him. Second time that I've had him on the show. So we tried to interview a lot of Detroit-based or Michigan-based personalities or journalists. And we've had Jace Howard, we've had Steven Izzo, Kirby Joseph, Tarik Skubal we've had on twice. So, pretty much all that can be found at CastellaniContent.com and can be found on our YouTube page and Twitter as well.
Really appreciate your time, because Chris Castellani is a superstar, and as you heard, all the stuff that he's doing this independent. He's going out on his own. He's killing the game right now. So much success. As we were reminiscing about the Locked On days, you've come a far way, and I'd love to see your success, because you're one of the genuine good people and hard workers in this industry. And like I said, I don't hate the Tigers. So if the White Sox are not going to be good, I want the Tigers to win the AL Central, because they're the least abrasive fan base. And when I went up there, man, beautiful people. And they told me there's no such place as South Detroit either.
Right. No, I'm with you.
So for Chris Castellani, my name is Herb Lawrence. Thank you for joining us here on the Addison to 35th podcast. This AL Central preview. Tomorrow we'll be having the Royals and the Twins.